is what is a soul tie, because we hear it talked about so often: soul ties, soul ties, soul ties. And so, first of all, I want to say that a soul tie can be formed without sexual intercourse, because we believe that we have to have sex with a person in order for our soul to be tied or connected to them. But there are healthy soul ties, as well as there are unhealthy soul ties or demonic soul ties. The way that you can know that your soul is tied to an individual is when you're trying to move on in another relationship, and you're constantly thinking about your ex and what your ex used to do and what used to happen, etc., etc. Even to when it comes down to married people, because not because you decide to get married today or tomorrow means that that soul tie has been broken, because you can be married and be intimate with your husband, and in your mind is elsewhere. You're thinking about how your ex or from 2 years ago used to make love to you. And so one of the things is we have to be able to be honest with God and with ourselves. You cannot be delivered from something that you don't acknowledge and that you're not honest with. And so if you recognize that you've been trying to move on and court and date, but you're constantly mentally in your mind, or even in some cases verbally, comparing the guy that you're now dating, or in some cases your husband to your ex, then that is definitely a soul tie. That is an area in your life that you need to pray about and that you need to ask the Lord to begin to break. Another thing is, you know that your soul is tied to someone when you're constantly thinking about them, even if you're not in a relationship, but it's almost as if you become obsessed with this individual. You refuse to set boundaries. You refuse to cut off all forms of communication, or even if you say, well, Felicia, me and him don't talk no more, but you're still snooping on his Instagram, still checking him out on Snap, on Twitter, etc., etc. You still literally trying to stay in the loop. So obviously, again, your soul is tied and it is connected to this individual. Believe it or not, we would always say, well, the man is doing so bad and he just beat her and she going through so much and she refused to leave him. Listen, that is a soul tie. One of the things we have to understand also too is that we are spirit. We have a soul, but we live in a body. Again, we are spirit. We have a soul, but we live in a body. Our body, which represents our flesh, is our unsaved nature. That's why the Bible goes on to say that every single day the spirit warreth against the flesh and the flesh warreth against the spirit. So as saved as I am, I could go there and hear the music playing, and even though I'm Dr. Felicia Archer, my body instantly began to move and I began to shake up, not because I'm not saved or not because I don't love God, but it's because this nature, this body is actually not saved. And so every day of our lives, we seek to bring our members of our flesh under subjection every single day. Now, our soul, it represents our will. It represents our emotions. It represents our desires. And so our soul carries everything. So when we talk about soul tie, we're talking about literally two people at the soul, or at the core of their being intertwined, being connected. And again, there are some soul ties that are healthy, that are good, and then there are other soul ties that are unhealthy and that are toxic. And you can have a soul tie not just with a boyfriend or a girlfriend, but it could be with an organization. There are some people we refuse to move on, even if God tell us our season is over at a particular church or an organization, and we say, my navel string in there. In other words, you say, my soul already tied to this particular place or this particular organization.
So basically, we could be tied to a job.
Yes, all of our lives, and we refuse to move on, and we refuse to elevate in our careers. And so a soul tie is not just is not just boyfriend and girlfriend or husband and wife, but a soul tie can extend as far as an organization, etc., etc. And so every single day of your life, when you come into a relationship with God, you literally begin to pray and ask God to help you to release that particular person or that particular organization. And of course,
memories.
Yes, and those memories. Now, not saying that every memory it will be washed away and was not, but as you walk in deliverance, the Lord will begin to deliver you. But that is something that you have to want. So you have to pray, you have to acknowledge it. And then the third thing is you need a level of accountability in your life. So whenever you feel like calling that number and checking up on your little thing and all these other stuff, listen, you need a level of accountability in your life. And so those are just, that's just the surface when it comes down to dealing with soul ties and how to be free. I remember when I first got saved, I was in a relationship for like 4 going on 5 years. And one year, every single day I went to the altar, every week. Every Sunday, Lord God, take it away from me, Jesus, because the struggle was real. Like I felt like I was always connected to this man because he was my first everything. And even to verbally, you could, one of the things the Lord said to me is you could tie your soul to someone verbally. And that's why even when we have intercourse outside of marriage, we have to be careful of the words we speak, because I would always tell him, I will always be yours. I will always be yours, out of ignorance. And so one day in prayer, the Lord said to me, now you have to renounce that vow, because you was constantly making that declaration, I will always be yours, I'll always be yours. And so now that you're trying to move into a healthy relationship, your soul is somewhere else. And so literally I had to begin to renounce him and to renounce those vows and those covenants. I will always love you and you will always belong to me and all these other stuff. Sometimes we say out of ignorance. And so, for the ladies that are watching, and even if the men are probably sneaking and tuned in, I encourage you to begin to think about some of the things you would have declared in an unhealthy relationship. Because instantly, when you begin to declare things out of your mouth, you begin to make a covenant and a vow. And as a result, you tie your soul to that place or to that person or to a group of people.
Yeah. Now, you did mention that earlier that it was the memory, like you could have a memory. It doesn't have to be a boyfriend or girlfriend. That makes me wonder, but if the person keeps coming up in your mind, you said, and you keep thinking about them. So is it possible to have a soul tie to a crush? That person don't know you. You just watching him from across the room, or he watching a female from across the way and admires this person. I wonder if it's possible to, or no, because you didn't have communication. Because some people get obsessive with that stuff.
Yes, I think honestly, even when it comes down, there's a difference between me admiring someone, but me mentally obsessing over that individual. What happens is in my mind, I begin to make them a god. And the reason why a lot of us don't succeed in courting and in dating, because after one telephone conversation in our mind, this my husband, this the one, yes.
Let me plan the wedding.
The door. He matched everything on my list, the whole 9 yards. And so we then become driven by our fleshly nature, and our emotions. It becomes cloudy, and that's why we can't necessarily trust our fleshly nature. We can't trust this heart. And so there is a thin line, honestly, even in reality, between sanity and insanity. Because if you're constantly obsessing and thinking and daydreaming about someone making love to you, you and this person being together, and he didn't even say hi to you, then honey boo, I think you need to see a therapist. Quite frankly, because yes, because even when it comes down to dating and relationships and being free from toxic relationships, is not just spiritual. We cannot become so prideful that we say, well, I don't need to talk to nobody about it. No, baby. In some cases, we need to seek professional help because we will be living in our heads. Honestly, and it doesn't mean that we're crazy or anything like that. It's just that we acknowledge that, hey, I don't understand what's happening with me mentally, so I need to see a professional. Because even too, it's okay as well to miss a toxic relationship, because the relationship wasn't always bad, you know, and because maybe there was a void that person filled in our lives. And so for me, I literally had to go after spitting all over the floor and vomiting and spinning around in church and them throwing olive oil on me or whatever. I went to see a counselor because now I needed to figure out, how will I fill this void in my life that he once filled, so that I will not go back to my past. And so if you find yourself just thinking about this person, no kind of social interactions or anything, then I suggest that you seek some kind of professional help and take it from there. And of course, pray, but seek professional help.
Yeah, it's a journey.
Yes.